welcome back to Bikes and Laces, and this week we are going to be discussing medals. Now, wherever you seem to look on social media, there will have been a debate sparked about whether they should be kept, whether they should be abolished, and there's always hundreds and hundreds of comments from personal viewers like yourself about whether they're good or not. This week we are going to be talking about them between ourselves. So, with the big medal debate, one of the biggest things that comes to light is the environmental impact of it. A lot of this, I think, comes down to almost the recyclability of the medal, especially for those of us who maybe don't want to keep hold of the medal.
Yeah, so one argument against that is here in the UK we have sports medal recycling. They're a almost charitable foundation who will recycle your medal, which includes the ribbon, the clasp and the actual medal itself, any packaging you send it into, and all the money they make from that, they send it off to GoFundMe pages. You can even nominate someone you want to receive some of the donation to. So it's a fantastic way of recycling your medals whilst also supporting the sport industry.
And for anyone out there who wants to keep hold of their medals but also wants to recycle part of it, it doesn't take much to take the ribbon off, find something else to do with the actual medal itself, like maybe put them all in a frame. It keeps it all nice, tidy, and it doesn't take up as much space in your house as piling them all onto the wall.
So I think that is one big argument on people who don't like medals on an environmental ground. And so yeah, I'm sure all the people who have environmental issues with the production of medals all commute to their races throughout the country and maybe throughout the world by foot, bicycle or public transport. I'm sure none of them drive to their event, and if they're that concerned with their environmental impact on the planet through these medals, then they can just stop doing organised events, run, cycle, do whatever sport they do outside of these organised events and just down the road from where they live.
So the next big talking point when it comes to the medal debate is the fact that only people who win races should be the ones to get medals. Now, my personal opinion of this is everybody should get medals because everybody works hard, they train hard, you know, and it's a really nice thing to get at the end of however many miles you've done on the bike or by foot. What are your thoughts on it?
So I'm not the biggest fan of medals. I don't mind if you earn a medal or not after a race or an event, sportif, whatever you're doing. But in cycling, there's not that many medals for general competitors. So a lot of the club run events will not have medals. So it's usually only national or regional events that will do medals for podium finishers. There's no participation medals. There are in sportifs. In some of them there are in any case. I've done some last year that didn't have them. I don't usually mind this one I did. I felt I deserved a medal because it was a really hard course but really enjoyable, and I thought a medal there would have been a nice memento, and I think that's the case in point for arguing for medals for races and events like that. They're not an award, they are a memento of the day. They could be anything. I know a lot of people argue for photographs or certificates or something like that, a t-shirt, like something like this that we got for running a 10k. They're just synonymous with sport, and I think they are just great mementos to have to remember a hard day out, because that's what they are. You know, if you're doing a race or a sportif, why not get something for doing that? You've paid your entry fee, where I know, especially for a cyclist, you can ride the roads that your sportif was on anyway. You know, okay, yes, you may not have some aid stations, but you can go to a shop and get some extra water or some food that you can't carry with you. So I think a medal is quite a big thing in sportifs. It is a memento of riding with those other guys on that day. It's not an award for doing that route, because you could go out the next day if you weren't too tired from the event, you could go out the next day and do it.
See, being on the other side of this, being a runner, there are a lot, if not almost all the events that I go and attend where you do get a medal. In the World of Duathlon, which is obviously our combined sport, I think most of them have a medal other than maybe one, which I personally was quite disappointed by the time I got to the end, realised there was no medal. I mean, they did have sweets and jelly snakes at the end, so that was always a bonus. But for me, it's great to look back on. I mean, half my medals are currently in one of my old shoe boxes, but it's still nice to go and flick through, see all the miles I've done, all the different races, and then all the ones that I'm currently picking up have been put on a nice display so I can see them as I walk through. I do have a lot of medals because I do a lot of races, and even with all the virtual races I do, you still get a medal from them, and they just put a huge smile on my face every time I see them. And you get some really nice designs, you get some really simple designs, and they're always a great talking point as well, I tend to find.
Yeah, so the argument I hate for most about against having medals as part of a just for participating is that you don't get it in the Olympics. You know, the medals are for first, second, third, and that's it. But my argument against that is that the Tour de France, you have participation medals. I mean, yes, that is probably tougher than anything any of us can ever dream of doing, but you know, it's just nice to have that recognition just for yourself. You're not asking anyone else to heap praise on you. So in my case, I generally keep my medals just in a box, just not on display or anything. The only ones that are out are probably maybe some of these that Jess has put up for the background of these videos. But two things I have on display are these little kilometre markers from Mont Ventoux. So not last year, the year before, I went and climbed Mont Ventoux, and at the top there's a little shop that sells these kilometre markers. You see them on the side of the road in France, so it's got the road and Mont Ventoux and what ascent it was. And these are the only things for cycling that I really have on display. You know, it wasn't a race up there. I just went up it at my own pace, and they're just little souvenirs to have out on display, show that I've done them. Really, it's not. It's, you know, okay, yeah. Cycling Ventoux is quite a big thing, but it's not. It's not really something you need to brag that much about. It is just yourself enjoying the road that's in front of you.
Just going back briefly to the point you made that, you know, some people do throw up the argument that there should only be something for first, second and third. But actually, when you have a look at a lot of the races that are out there, there are also prizes for first, second or third, or first place female, first place male. So it's not like they don't have those options. They have them alongside the participation medals, which a lot of people, you know, who out there maybe not going to be able to get first, second or third, dependent on their situation, their training plans, their health, but being able to get that medal means the world to them.
Yeah, I mean, like those trophies, I think it's first, second and third, and then they'll have like first veteran in each category, or first age groupers and stuff like that. A lot of them come with trophies, and some of them even come with like a financial reward, whether it's in the form of a voucher or money offer, or, you know, tickets or something. They're always shown to be above your regular finisher. Everyone still gets that participation medal.
Yeah.
Which and that's for finishing. You know, you don't get it for turning up and not finishing. I think that's another thing that needs to be stated.
Yeah. You get the finisher medal for finishing, for going there, turning up, completing your miles, and getting to the end normally in one piece. So the big thing about medals and race fees, especially that I've come across in the various comments of debates that I've spotted on social media, is that if we were not to have the medals, would we get reduced race fees? Now, I've personally had a look into creating some medals, and by the time you really boil down to it, they're probably a couple of quid. Okay, the upfront cost of ordering 100, 200, however many medals you need would be a lot bigger, but the actual individual medal itself, you're probably looking about £1.59, maybe £2.59. So if you were to take that off, say, a race that set you back £75, you're not really looking to save much.
Yeah, you got to think, if the medals were such a drain on the resources of the event organisers, surely they'd be the first things to cut in order to boost profit.
You would definitely think so.
So yeah, like Jess said, I've bought medals as so like as Jess said, my dad used to run my rugby team, and for like youth events, we'd always have a medal for a festival or a competition and stuff like that. They're only a couple of quid each. Looking at the price of some of these races, I know triathletes spend a couple £100 sometimes for an Ironman or something like that. And would you consider not having a medal for Ironman in your age group or something? That would be something. If I ever did something like that, that would be something I'd definitely want a medal for. That is a big achievement for an amateur. You got to remember all the people competing are paying to enter this event. And they're competing at it just for the sake of, I don't know why they're competing for it, to be honest. But you see where I'm going. It's if it was that much off a race fee, would you actually consider dropping the medal? Or if a medal was an add-on of £2, I think even myself, who isn't that interested in medals, I'd definitely tick the box.
Yeah.
They might look. Some of these medals are absolutely amazing looking. They're pieces of art. Some of them are just a circle with the date and the event stamped on them. That's fine too.
I think I would be, if a race came up and it was, you can have a medal but you've got to pay an extra couple of quid, I'd be more inclined to pay the extra couple of pounds to get the medal.
Yeah, a lot of the events we do have, they'll have merchandise that you can add on.
Yeah.
Hoodies and t-shirts are probably the main thing. If I could, and I don't think I've ever selected to get them if they're an optional extra.
I think I've only ever done it with one so far, and that's with the Red January event that I'm taking part in. And even that was just so I can get the t-shirt and I can tick off the days as I go along.
Yeah, so I always wondered how much money you'd save. Yeah, there are some events that have clothing as part of the reward for finishing, and you can opt in or out of it. And I think Human Races Ballbuster is one of that, and that's about £100 to enter. It's not maybe £90 something to enter. How much cheaper it would be if you didn't offer a hoodie? I think a hoodie is the thing. Hoodies are quite expensive. Say if you went to buy one in a shop in that branding, I think £30 would probably be a fair price. Maybe £20 at a reduced price. But would people be more inclined to add a jersey? I think it all comes down to choice, and when you're trying to you're not going to satisfy everyone with, you will get medals, you will get t-shirts, add them on as optional extras or whatever. I think the idea of adding a medal on as an optional extra, but due to the price of a medal being so much cheaper than a hoodie or something like that, you're more inclined just to go with that. Say you'll probably cap how many entrants you can have. You can just produce those straight away. Medals are one size fits all, so you're not having to worry about that last minute things where people enter and they're saying, oh, they want this size or that size. Someone may want an extra large, or extra large, whatever, or an extra small, and you got to add that to your order. Whereas a medal, you just know how many entrants you're getting and you pay that to the producers.
So this brings me quite nicely on to one of the other points that I've seen come up. There has been a lot of people who've commented saying, why not just give me the option to opt out of a medal? Now, this is a really nice idea. The only downside I can see of this is a medal can take anything from about 6 to 8 weeks to create, and then they've got to get it sent to you. So you're potentially looking a good 2 or 3 months to get a medal organised. Now, if you wanted to offer that to people, you've got to make sure that you've got a clear number of exactly how many medals you need in that time frame, which could seriously cut back just how much time you've got to advertise your race. It means that you'll have to make the date cut off potentially 3 to 4 months before the race actually happens. The only other way of getting around this is you know that you can take 200 participants, so you make 200 medals. But then if you have about 100 of them who turn around and say, actually, I don't want it, you've got 100 medals that you've not got anything to do with, especially if you're a company who changes the design of it each year. I reckon the only way you could get around that is if it was the same design every year, but then you risk not being able to bring people back with a new medal design.
I think that's why you see different ribbons often. So it's the same medal, different ribbon. Which I quite like. I quite like the idea of having the same medal every year. There's a sportif, my first sportif, and I went back and I've done it about 5 or 6 times now, and the medal's always pretty similar, and I like the idea of them all lined up together, and the only thing that's different is the number of the year that's on it. I quite like that.
And I kind of imagine the ribbons quite easy to change. Okay, so now we are going to have a look to some of the alternatives out there that you could have instead of medals. So the first one we're going to look at are race tops. Now, you tend to get these at most races. I know I've got quite a few, you've got quite a few. What are your thoughts on them?
So from the perspective of a cyclist, we don't actually get cycling jerseys that much with entries to sportifs or anything like that. There's nothing like that for races. There's one event I have done that they are included in part of the entry, and that's the Garmin's Ride Out, Garmin Day Out, something like that. They're really nice. I've done it the last couple of years, and the design changes. They're pretty good jerseys made by Primal. If you're in the UK, I'm sure you know who Primal are. And I don't wear them that often, but they are a nice thing to remember the day. Again, they have the year on them. Stuff like that.
So looking at race tops from a runner's perspective, I've got quite a few of them. You tend to get them at most running races. You can either pay for them, like I've done with some of mine, or you can get them as a bit of a freebie. Now, one of the downsides I find with race tops is even though when you sign up you get to select what size you're going to be, you're not always guaranteed that size by the time you get to the end, particularly if you are a bit of a slower runner like myself compared to all the top end runners who can do a mile in probably 8 minutes, 7 minutes, something like that. They're going to get there and get all the tops first. And even though I've selected my size, there's been a couple of times I've come away with a large or extra large. It's just that I'm fortunate enough to sew so I can shorten some of them down quite a bit. The other perspective I want to come from for race tops is as a woman. There are a lot of times I go to races and all the t-shirts are unisex size, which is great because you get a nice comfortable top, but it's not quite the ladies fit that you want whenever you're wearing a top, especially to go out running in.
So I argued earlier that the idea of participation medals were as a memento rather than an award for the race. A lot of people have asked for photos instead. At most events there'll be at least one photographer out on the course taking photos, and then they will then sell them as part of the event. A lot of people ask that to be included with the entry.
This is quite a nice idea in itself, especially as photos can be quite pricey. I think I've paid nearly £10 for a photo before. However, there are quite a lot of drawbacks for photos. One of the first drawbacks is I've had plenty of photos taken of me during races, but actually I look so bad in them that I don't actually want to buy them.
Yeah, and for myself, there have been some times where I haven't even appeared on the photographer's list of photos from that event, despite going through their whole album. I think that you're always going to get a medal if a medal is produced. You're always going to get a t-shirt if one is produced. You know, it might be one size too big, one size too small, but you're still going to get something. It could be because there is human error involved in photos. There might be the chance that you don't actually get a photo of you in the race, and someone may receive loads of photos. So it's a bit of an unfair balance in the fact that someone may actually get more of a reward for their racing than you do. You know, Oh, to be fair, you might look terrible in the photos, and you might not want them.
Okay, so this is something we've already touched on very briefly, and that is having a reduced entry fee as opposed to a medal. Again, just revisiting this, the problem is medals are quite cheap to make, especially by the time you've factored it down, it's a couple of quid. You're not really going to save much. But what if they decided to do 10% off? If you opted not to have a medal, not to have a race top, you could get something like 10% off.
I think in that case you'd have to argue what sort of amazing medal is it if it's going to be 10% off. You know, sometimes races are, say a good value one would be £30, maybe £20 if it's like a small 5k or something. And you can wear up to £100, £200 for your bells and whistle triathlon. Even 5% off. You're going to think that better be some hell of a good medal, especially at the top end of entry fees. You know, a medal is a medal that is only going to be a couple of quid. I think no matter how flash you go with them. So, you know, in the end, it's probably not worth taking it off or even offering it as an extra. Because a couple of quid, you're already spending a lot of money. You've already had to commit that lot of money into it. I don't think it's even worth having as an extra or that much price saving, because what's to stop event organisers just stopping producing a medal and cashing putting that money into their pockets rather than into a medal?
Not a lot, really. Okay, so this follows very nicely into something else I've seen suggested from people on various debates. What if it was offered a discount on a future race? Now, my big personal issue with this is a lot of the race companies that we use, a lot of the running races we do, you tend to find that they are throwing up discounts for Black Friday, Christmas, Easter, the beginning of the year, you name it. There's always someone turning around and saying, hey, we've got a discount, come and join our race. So to me, that doesn't really seem much different, and you're almost losing out on a medal from a previous race.
Yeah, so I had this thing this summer with a race, a sportive I did, and they didn't have a medal, and the only thing they offered was, which was quite good actually, I did like this, it was 50% off entry for next year. Unfortunately, I'm already booked up that day next year, so I can't take advantage of it, so I feel sort of left out of that one. It was up for that race only, it wasn't for the, they run a series of sportifs. I don't think which any of I can do next year. So I lost out on that. What you want is something that everyone can take advantage of. Whether, you know, it would have been nice if there was a burger van or something at the end, and, you know, here's a token for a burger or something like that. Yeah. I think people would like that. You know, you'd have to make sure there was a vegetarian and a vegan option, yes, but I mean, I think most places do that nowadays. So I think a medal is just it's a bit stereotypical, but I think it's probably better than anything else you're going to be able to offer someone.
I think the other problem with offering a discount for a future race is if this happens to be your first time doing a particular race, and okay, you don't get a medal but you get a discount for a future one, if you've got to the end and you really didn't enjoy that race, you're probably not going to want to go back. Thank you for watching. We would like to know your thoughts on the subject, so do drop a comment below this video. And if you enjoyed the video, then why not give it a like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to be notified of upcoming videos. And even if you didn't like it, hit the like and subscribe anyway.